Hello everyone. This week we are discussing replacement cost estimators and when we have to obtain one. I use this guideline that we are discussing today across all loan programs that I underwrite. For those that are not sure what the replacement cost is, it's the cost that it takes to rebuild the property if there was a total loss. Now let's dive into the guideline. For a first mortgage secured by a property on which has individual insurance policy maintained, coverage for lesser of the following is required. This is for single-family residents and PUDs. This guideline does not apply for condos and fully attached PUDs, where the individual only has to carry walls in. That's an entirely different guideline that we can cover in the weeks to come. 100% of the insurable value of improvements as established by the property insurer. Basically, if you have a replacement cost estimator or the cost approach on the appraisal, or the appraised value equals to the dwelling coverage, you are covered and you are good to go. Now let's talk about the tricky part of the guideline where either mortgage professionals stop reading or they do not fully understand. I even got caught up on this part of the guideline until I had a peer point this out to me. Hey, none of us are perfect and we all learn from each other. So then the guideline states, or the unpaid principal balance of the mortgage. Then everyone stops reading for some reason. Even I stopped reading. I know underwriters that stopped reading. I know processors that stopped reading and LOs on this part. So let's keep digging into the guideline. So the guideline states as long as it is at least equals the minimum amount of 80% insurable value of improvements required to compensate for damage or loss on a replacement cost basis. This does not mean that if your dwelling coverage equals your loan amount, you are good to go. This means that it can equal the loan amount as long as your loan amount equals to a minimum 80% of the replacement cost. Remember, your appraised value is most likely higher than the replacement cost of the home because the appraised value has the entire value of the home, including the land. Quick example here. If your coverage equals the loan amount and your LTV is 80%, you are fine. But if your coverage equals the loan amount and your LTV is 70%, you will either need a replacement cost estimator or use the cost approach on the appraisal, or you might need more coverage on your dwelling. Before I lead with more examples, I want to discuss what the cost approach is. I know we have a lot of veterans in the business that might be listening to this, but I want to make sure that even the complete newbies to the industry understand what we are discussing today. Cost approach is the total cost of the property broken out on the appraisal report, where the appraiser breaks down his values of land versus structure and how much it would cost to rebuild the property. If you look below, this is an example of one on the appraisal report. We are looking at total estimate cost as new, which this does not include the land. Please note, appraisers are not required to fill this out. It's just a great tool if they do for underwriting. And if they do not fill this out, or if you analyze the cost approach and you do not have enough coverage, then you will need a replacement cost estimator or more coverage. The cost approach is not always 100% accurate, as it is truly the appraiser's opinion, but we could still use it. Now that we know what the cost approach is, let's get into some more examples. These are not the only scenarios out there, but these are the most common ones that I do see on when you might need a replacement cost estimator. When the dwelling coverage covers the loan amount, but it doesn't cover the appraised value, and your LTV is under 80%, just as what we discussed. When the dwelling coverage is below the loan amount and below the appraised value, and there's no cost approach. When you have a property inspection waiver, I have caught a lot of properties not having enough coverage because we are going off of the loan amount. We have no idea what the cost to replace the property is. You cannot just use the value that is accepted by AUS because that might not be the amount that it takes to rebuild the property. When you get an appraisal waiver, it's literally a random number that the LO pulls out of a hat. Literally pulls it out of the hat. I have seen it. The LO says, put the value in at 300K, no waiver. All right, let's try 350. Okay, awesome. We have a waiver. Let's roll. This is why you need a replacement cost on a PIW. You have no idea what it takes to rebuild the home. Thanks everyone for tuning in this week. I hope this helps anyone out there with understanding replacement cost estimators and why they might be required. If you like the content like this, please make sure you share with your counterparts and like, subscribe, and follow. Spread the word because together we all learn from each other. With anyone that has any questions, please feel free to email me anytime. See you next week.